Hello everybody! Our Godot tutorial is slowly entering the final phase, where we will focus on various enhancements to the almost finished game. We will begin with adding new scenes for the main menu, game settings, key bindings, etc. Let's get started. Until now, we've been able to manage with just a single scene that was automatically activated when the game started. However, the final version of the game should offer much more than that. Players expect a menu screen to introduce the game, the ability to customize game parameters, and the option to redefine game controls. In this video, we'll try to implement that. Before we start, let's ensure that we have two important functions in the script game manager, functions that help us control the visibility of the mouse cursor. Let's start with adding a new variable. Var mouse capture is by default false. So when this is set to true, it means that the mouse cursor has been hidden. And of course, we need functions to work with that. Capture mouse, and we will use built-in functions. Input set mouse mode, and we need the first one, mouse mode captured, and of course the variable mouse captured will be set to true. And now similarly func release mouse, and again input set mouse mode, and this time visible, and mouse captured would be set to false. We will make one significant change in the game because the menu screen will become a new starting point. This menu screen will include the game logo, menu items, which are currently limited to start, settings, and exit, and possibly a copyright notice positioned at the bottom. It would be perfectly fine to create this scene in 2D. However, since Godot allows for seamless integration of 2D and 3D elements, we can leverage the power of 3D effects in this case as well. So instead of a static 2D screen, we can design a 3D scene with a 2D overlay. There is one advantage to this approach: we can incorporate game assets in the background, for example, asteroids, ships, and other things to make it even more visually appealing. So let's start with creating a new scene. Here, create new scene, node 3D, and let's call it menu. Okay, create. And we will attach a new script here, menu gd. There we go. Now we would like to reuse the world environment settings from the game scene, but instead of copying and pasting that, we can extract the environment resource and share it across all scenes. So let's get back to the main scene. Let's scroll down, here it is, we'll open it and select the node world environment. Here, show it in the inspector. We'll click the down arrow here in the environment property and select save. Let's call it world. Okay, world, all right, and save. Now let's get back to the menu scene and create a new child node, world environment. Okay, and instead of creating it from the scratch, we will simply drag this resource here, and it is there. If we click to 3D, it should be black. Great. We'll proceed with copying and pasting camera 3D and directional light from the main scene. Let's click back and select them with Control C to copy, and Control V to paste. Okay, now let's add a child node called canvas layer. Here it is. Let's right-click it and add a VBox container, because we will organize our many items in one single column. So VBox container. Let's right-click the container and add 2 instances of button, and we'll call them start button and Ctrl D to duplicate exit button. I know that I've been talking about settings as well, but we will add it later. Let's start with just these 2. Let's add text to our buttons. So it would be start and exit. By the way, why don't we switch to the 2D scene to observe the progress? Let's get back to the inspector. And of course, we need to improve the font. So let's scroll down, theme overrides, fonts, and we can again reuse the font we use from the heads-up display here, and let's increase its size to 40, and let's do the same here. Theme overrides, fonts, drag the font file and font size 40. Okay, now we will click the container node and see it in the inspector, then expand the layout section, and anchor preset we want to have it at the center. Sorry, I clicked something wrong. Again, center. There it is. Let's select the start button and find its signals in the node signals, and we are interested in the signal pressed. Let's double click that and click connect, and the new method was created in the menu script. And let's do the same for the exit button. Again, pressed, double click. Okay, there will be a very simple implementation. All we need to do is just call get_tree and change scene to file, and the file we want to do is res, I think it's main, right? Yeah, just that. And as for exiting, a simple way to exit from a Godot application is to call get_tree and quit. Yeah, nothing else. Okay, so as we transition the active scene from the menu to main, when the start button is pressed, we should also implement a reverse process. To keep things straightforward, if the player triggers the built-in action UI cancel, which is typically mapped to the escape key, the game will return to the menu screen. Let's add this code to main GD. So switch back to main scene, and we should have the function input. No, we don't have it yet, but we'll create it. Let's do it. Func input event, and if input is action just pressed, and as I mentioned, it should be UI cancel. Of course, it can be later remapped to something else, but let's start with that. We should call game manager release mouse, the function we just added at the start of this video. And because when we return from the game, when the mouse cursor was hidden, we want to see it again in the menu. And again, change the active scene, get_tree, change scene to file, and in this case it would be res scenes menu. Okay, yeah, because only the first scene, the main TSCN, is created in the root. All other scenes we added to the scenes folder. By the way, why not to reuse the invisible boundaries and the star field from the game scene? Let's do it. So first we need to find the boundary scene here. Models, no, scenes, there it is. Let's drag it to the root. Okay. No, we are in the main. Sorry. Click too many. This is the right one. Okay. There it is. And we can just add it or copy it from the main script. So what would it be? Game manager, set boundary and spawn stars, right? All right. Then we'll delete the set camera, as we don't need the camera in the menu screen. Okay, ready. Copy, paste, delete this. And one more thing, we need to release mouse here, just to be sure, just in case it was captured in some other scene, so it is properly displayed. Release mouse. All right. And of course, in the process function, we want to animate the stars. So let's find this line here in the main script. This should be it. Process background. Okay. The last thing we need to do is to ensure that the scene, this one menu, would open right after we click Run Project. We'll set this scene at Project Settings, General, and I think it is Application and Run. See, it's currently pointed to the main TSCN. Let's find the other scene here. That's it. Let's verify that everything works as expected. We'll start the game, and we can see that the new menu screen appeared with a star field and the two buttons. So if we press start, the game was started. Let's press escape, and we are back in the menu. And if we click exit, the game was exited. Cool. To add a logo into our game, there are different approaches we can take. One option is to create a custom illustration and place it as a sprite on the 2D layer of the scene. However, if graphic design isn't your expertise, here's an alternative method to generate a reasonably good-looking text-based logo. We will create a 3D rendition of the game logo using Blender, and again we will incorporate the game font to design a visually appealing label. I skipped this modeling part because it is basically the same as we used while creating the power-ups. So let's just import the result. Let's click models and find the file which is here. I'll drag it to the folder to import it. There it is. And this time we won't create a new inherited scene because we don't plan to use the logo model more than once. Instead, we'll just drag the file logo to the scene menu TSCN. Let's do it as a child node. There it is. And then let's right-click this node and click Make Local, which gives us access to the Mesh Instance 3D, which is hidden inside. Let's click it, and we will add a material to give it a nice looking metallic touch. Again, surface material override, and the materials are here. Let's try this one again. Okay, we can switch to the 3D view and change the camera, and we can see that it is actually here. Space shooter. So as you can see, I made some adjustments. I changed the position of the logo, and also I increased its size because it was very small. So now if we start a game, we can see it exactly where it's supposed to be. It might not be the best logo ever created, but as a placeholder I think it can be just fine. Okay, now you might remember from the initial video when I showed some kind of a fade-in effect while showing the game logo. Let's see how it can be easily done. So first we'll create a second light. Let's duplicate existing directional light 3D and call it logo light. Now in the editor we will select, it's already selected, and let's rotate it away from the logo. There it is. It's pointing up at the moment. And of course we need to address the issue that the logo is still being illuminated by the first light. So we will use the cull mask like we previously utilized for the debris objects. Let's click the directional light 3D again and let's open, I think it's here in light, cull mask, and we will remove 2 from the mask, and for the logo light we will remove 1. So no, this is something else. Here we will remove 1. Now as we can see it is barely illuminated. Let's check it out in the game. Okay, nothing changed here because we forgot to add the logo to the right layer. So let's click the logo object, or more like the mesh instance 3D, and change the layer from 1 to 2. Let's try it again. That's better. Okay, and this is just a foundation of our animation effect. Let's get back to the script of the menu screen, and we will implement a gradual rotation of the light source to achieve the fade-in effect. So first we need a reference to the light source, which is here. So let's drag it and hold Control. And now we need some more variables. Current rotation, that starts at 0. Max rotation. In fact, we'll probably have to experiment a little bit with this value because it's difficult to determine the exact range of the rotation just by estimating that, but it's not a big problem. And finally, if we are rotating, this would be true. And let's check the process function. We will add this code if rotating, because once it's rotated, it will stop any further animation. Logo light rotate around x-axis by delta. Again, independent on the current frames per second. Now let's increase the current rotation variable so we know if we already hit the max rotation or not, and if rotating and current rotation is greater or equal than max rotation, we are finished. Let's try it. Yeah, something is animating. Definitely it's not exactly what we wanted, but as I said, we need to experiment with the values a little bit. Okay, so what I did was to change the max rotation to 3 and changed the initial rotation of the camera to 90 degrees. Now when we start the game, it would be a lot better. Yeah, this is fine. In certain situations, especially in action games, it's essential to provide players with the ability to pause the game, do something else, and then resume playing by pressing a designed key. Essentially, there are two approaches to achieve this functionality. The first one is pretty complicated and prone to errors because it would involve to add something like a new variable pause to every script and then skip the processing of functions process or physics process if the variable is set to true. As I said, I don't recommend this approach because we could easily omit certain nodes, especially those without an attached script. So let's take advantage of Godot's internal global pause functionality. First of all, we need to inform the player that the game is paused. So we will click back to the main scene and let's add a new child node called of the type vbox container, and let's rename it to pausebox, and let's create two labels here as child nodes. First, that would be, let's say, game paused label, and the second one continue label. All right, let's add text to this label. So first would be game paused, and the second one press enter to continue. Alright, let's switch to the 2D view. Yeah, it's located here, so we need to center it first. Pause box, where it is layout and anchors presets. Center. It can overlap with the loading label because these two labels will never be displayed at the same time. And of course, again, let's add the font. Theme overrides, fonts. This one, size 40. And the second text, theme overrides, fonts. Let's drag it, and the font size can be smaller, let's say 30. Too big. 20. Okay, that's better. Now we need to add the following code to the script main GD. Let's click back to script, and first we'll make a reference to the pause box here. Drag, control key, here it is. Now in the function ready, first we need to make it invisible, so it would be pause box visible is false. Now in the input event we want to create a new action called post game. So, definitely not here, but here in the input map. So let's do it first. Input map, we will call it pause game and assign, for example, the key P for pause. All right, and now we can use it here. So if input is action just pressed, pause game, it's already here. Let's call the function pause game, which is not there yet. We will implement it instantly. Func pause game. And what we need to do is to make the pause box visible. And call a special function in game manager that we will name set pause environment. Because, for example, we want to decrease the illumination of the scene when the game is paused, stop all animations and other kind of things, and it would be better just to have a global function in case that we need to call it from other parts of the project. And now finally the Godot's internal function get3 paused equals true. That's it. This is sufficient to pause everything that reacts to this global functionality. We can then see how it's possible to exclude some nodes from the global pause. And of course, we need to implement this function, or at least a stub. Let's do it here at Game Manager. What would be the good place? Here, for example, func set pause environment, and let's add pass for now. And of course, we will need to resume the game too. So we will add one more function, reset pause environment, and this won't be implemented either now. All right. Now, if we try this functionality, let's start the game and let's do something and press P. Yeah, game is paused, except the shader. This is another issue we'll address later. Basically, shaders use their own internal clock, so they don't react to this paused game, but there's a trick how to accomplish that. I'll show it later. However, there is another problem now, because since we paused everything, the game no longer reacts to keystrokes, so there is no way to resume the game. We need to address this issue in a slightly other way. Let's add a new child node to the main root and of the type simple node, and let's name it pause node. Okay, and now we'll attach a new script to it called pause node. Good. Let's click the node and open it in the inspector, and we should see that in this section process we never used before, there is the process mode, and it is set to inherit, which is the default value. It means that all nodes that just inherit from the main functionality would be paused when the pause is active. To exclude that, we just open it here and make it when paused. This will ensure that the node won't inherit the main scene pause mode anymore. It would be actually the opposite. Its input events will be captured and processed only when the game is in the pause state. Now, let's go back to the project settings, and we will add another entry to the input map to resume the game. So let's add the action resume game, and we can map it to enter as we announce in the label. All right. And of course there may be two enters on the keyboard, so we can do a duplicate mapping and keep enter. There it is. Now, to control the visibility of the pause text overlay, let's add the following code to the process function in the main script, and that would be here. So if level loaded, let's pause box make visible only if get3 is paused. That's it here. And now open the new script pause mode gd, and we will add just an input handler func input event. Since we won't use this variable, we can add an underscore as a prefix, so it would stop certain warnings in the console. And if input is action just pressed, resume game, There it is. And if the game is paused, because you can press enter anytime, and if the game is not paused, it would make no sense to change the environment. Game manager, reset game, pause environment, and let's cancel the global pause. Get tree paused is false. All right, let's give it a try. Start, be paused, and enter, resume, pause, resume. It's working. So, as I mentioned, the global pause doesn't affect the shader code, but optionally, we can stop animating shading materials as well. It wouldn't be a real pause, most like a simple hack. Let me show you how you can do that. So let's go to project settings, and there is a type shader globals. We will add a new parameter, global time, of the type float. Where is float? Here. Okay, add. Now we will open our shader definition. It should be here at shaders, explosion GD shader. Let's enlarge it a little bit. And what we need to do is first to insert this global variable we just created. So global uniform float global time and semicolon. And now shaders use internal variable time to calculate time difference, and we need to replace it by this global time, all occurrences. So let's find it. Time, here it is. First, second, and is that all? Oh, 3 matches. Where is the last one? No, it is. Let's just do match case, and there should be no match because we already replaced both occurrences. Okay, and this is not all. We need to get back to the main GD script and do this, because we need to update this variable from our code. So we will add a new variable, for instance here, global time starts at 0, and in the function process, here it is, we will, if the level is loaded, we will increment this global time by delta, and of course we need to send it to the shaders, to all shaders. This is the way to do that. Rendering server, global shader parameter set, where it is here, and we will set the global time, and the value is global time. Okay, that should be enough. Let's check it out. So we'll start the game. Let's make something exploding. Press P. Yeah, as you can see, the fire has stopped as well. If we press enter to resume, it finished exploding once again. Works perfectly. The only drawback of this solution is that the particle shader is no longer animated in the 3D editor because the global uniform is not updated outside the game scope. Let me show you. I think we need to open the scene explosion. Yes, and we click fire. As you can see, it's no longer animated. But this is just a small issue, and if necessary, we can always temporarily replace global time by time again in the shader code. Now, we can enhance the pause functionality further by adding a visual effect. We'll apply a blur to the 3D viewport and overlay it with a fog that could improve the visibility of the pause message. To accomplish this effect, we can configure a volumetric fog within our world environment node. But first, it's likely that we will need to modify the environment properties from at least 2 different places, like the pause and the resume code, so we'll make it accessible from Game Manager script. Let's open the script and add a new variable. Here, var world environment. Okay, and the setter function, let's put it here. Func set, copy and paste to make it faster. Set world environment. Okay, and simply world environment is this parameter. And now we can implement the previously prepared pause and set pause and reset pause environment functions. So first we will do this world environment. Now the property environment and volumetric fog enabled is true, and let's give it some interesting color. So we will just copy this. It's volumetric fog albedo underscore, of course, albedo is color, and the color code, let's say we will use a shade of gray, 29, 29, 29. Good. And of course we need to reset it back to that we'll disable the fog. So in this function we will add the same but false. Okay, so we are already here. Now let's switch to main script, and we will first switch to the whole scene because we will need to make a reference to the world environment. Let's drag it with control, and we will call it in the ready function. Here, for instance, Game Manager, set world environment, and there it is. Well, let's just see it in action. We start the game and click start button. Now let's do some action here and press P, and you can see the fog has been placed on the top of the scene, but the UI 2D layer is not affected, so we can see the text game paused much better. And we can also observe the line 2D effect here as the bullet trail. It's also very nice. Okay, resume and finish. Let me show you one last trick before I leave this topic. It could be beneficial to automatically pause the game when the game window loses focus. This can be achieved by detecting the focus out event and appropriately handling it within the script of the specific scene. So we are already in the main script, which is okay, and let's implement this function. Func underscore notification, and if what is main loop notification application focus out, there it is, then we can automatically call our existing function pause game. Let's see if it works. I will start a game, and it's in Windows, so we can then click elsewhere. Now let's play and click outside the window. And let's click back. Game is paused. Perfect. Okay, it seems that it took more time than I expected at the start to explain everything about creating the menu, modeling the game logo and pausing the game. Anyway, I hope you found a lot of useful information and tricks here, and we'll get to the game settings in the next video. See you soon.